Games have always had a rough history with water levels, and they tend to be the most disliked section of many games for many people. They can seem out of place and obligatory, they can often have you switch to a new control scheme that's, bad, and you probably have to worry about the stresses of drowning on top of everything else. Water has always freaked me out, ever since I was a young kid. Whenever it would come up in games, I always got incredibly uncomfortable. I remember so many times as a boy where I'd be happily playing some game until, nope, sorry, goddamn sharks run rampant in the harbor. Or who needs the tried and true invisible walls when you have sharks? Here's our terrifying underwater level, jam-packed with nightmare fuel. I'd always avoid these sections of games if I could. If I couldn't, depending on my age, I'd probably just stop playing the game and never come back. Anyway, I played Subnautica. You begin the game in an escape pod. You frantically rush to strap yourself in and only catch a small glimpse of your starship exploding outside before being knocked unconscious by an aggressive wall panel. You wake up just in time to avoid being burned alive and get a moment to analyze your surroundings. You can familiarize yourself with your cozy life pod and find that many functions are offline, or you can venture outside. If you somehow manage to avoid knowing literally anything about this game before playing it, this is where you might be dumbfounded by the sight of an endless ocean stretching out beyond the horizon on all sides. It's a cool moment when you walk out and see the planet for the first time. I felt a small sensation of helplessness, seeing no islands, no form of land anywhere, nothing but the cold, indifferent sea sprawled out before me. That and the massive wreckage of the ship I had barely managed to escape. Already I could spot plenty of sea critters around me. An unsettling sight, but I'd figured it would be too cruel to have hostile, murderous sea life already in the very first part of the game. Taking the inevitable dive, I was happy to see that at least I'd landed in a reasonably shallow kind of biome, much less terrifying than having to worry about what might be lurking below you as well as above and beside you. I soon got to work, with the usual kinds of tasks you perform in survival games like this. Instead of punching trees, you punch limestone. Instead of hunting chickens, you start snatching, fish. Whatever the hell this is. There were a few different kinds of fish swimming around when it came to food, including one called a boomerang that sadly does not return to you when thrown. I tried. Once you collect a few, you can simply return to your life pod and cook them whenever you want to. You don't need any kind of resource or fuel to cook them, which as a small quality of life improvement I certainly don't mind, especially when I'd failed to really do much before nighttime overtook the world. There was absolutely no way in hell I was going to be meandering out and about in the water at dark, so I took the chance to get to know my escape pod and new home a little more intimately. Took a gander over my menus, inventory, blueprints, trying to get a feel for what I should be looking for on my next adventure out during the day. That and I hopped topside for a bit to admire the equally ominous and charming revolving moon? Soon enough though, it was bright enough to explore some more. I found some metal debris from the giant wrecked ship, which was cool, unlike the weird-ass exploding cyclops fish that seemed to guard all the nearby caves. The first heart attack of many. Other interesting finds on this day were these weird guys that have a bunch of wrenches on their heads, the aforementioned nearby cave network, which was pretty spooky, these dudes, which were pretty scary, and my newfound ability to dive out of the water like a dolphin, which seems cool but is actually just really annoying when you want to float above the surface to catch your breath. I gather enough materials to craft a new oxygen tank, which is pretty nice in a world of entirely water that you can't breathe. I made a repair tool as well, which let me fix up my escape pod. Aside from brightening the lights, I don't actually know what this did, but I guess it was probably good. Then I fixed the final broken thing in here, the communications relay. The communications relay was really intriguing to me. I didn't expect you'd ever have any form of contact or interaction with other people, so to hear that there was another ship nearby coming to look for survivors on the planet was a big surprise. That's spoilers though, that doesn't actually happen until a little bit later. So for now, after patching up my house, I decided it was time to find a new way to make rubber. See, I really had my heart set on constructing this sweet pair of slippers so that I could, maybe have a chance of swimming away the next time something wanted to tackle me and explode me to death. So I get out there. Of course I do some light scavenging to get my food and thirst bars topped off, and I start the hunt for something called creepvine, which you can turn into rubber, which you can turn into slippers. So it's time to travel outside my comfort zone a little bit, and sure enough, I stumble upon a field of these giant seaweed strand things. At the same time, I come across some scattered pieces of the destroyed starship, which is called the Aurora, by the way. But these were much larger than the scraps I'd found before, and indeed, among the parts here were new bits of technology that I could learn to replicate. Which is super cool, and I like this addition to the survival game formula a lot. Interesting, unique rewards for exploring is always something I'm on board with. I fancy myself a bit of an explorer more than anything. But anyway, happy to find what I probably need to make rubber, I begin my approach. I see these guys, lurking around in the forest of kelp. So, fuck. Alright, you know what? Maybe I'll not go there. Yeah, no, I'll just kind of skirt the borders of this place and maybe look for a section that isn't currently occupied by my nightmares. Like over here. This seems a lot nicer. Cool, alright. Let's take a look at this thing, see if we can figure out how to— Jesus Christ! Okay, you know what? No, you lost your chance. I hope you're happy with spending the rest of your life forever alone, Forest of Weeds place, because I am never coming back, alright? You scared me off for good. Congratulations. I can just live in my cozy 5-square-foot escape pod house in the village of exploding Cyclops monsters, okay? It's really not too bad once you get used to a lifestyle of eternal sadness and pruning hands, so I don't think I have any need to further explore this particular brand of the underworld, okay? Thanks, bye, see ya. You think this is a joke, but really, I left. I was not having any of that, so I just went home. I had a nice meal, enjoyed the cold, hard, cramped interior of my escape pod, which was, as far as I could tell, not crawling with alligator sharks or wrist-devouring parasite things. It was an okay time. I got a call from some other survivors from the crash. I even found out I could make a spiffy scanner so that I could learn more about my neighborhood. It was actually pretty cool having that ability to run around and learn about all the creatures and plants I'd been seeing. I learned the exploding cyclopses produce an important sulfuric powder. I learned these things are called rabbit rays, which is pretty adorable. I learned you can scan yourself, which is interesting. I wonder what that... I have no idea what this means. After that, I went home to spend another relaxing night in my pad, and in the morning, my quest to scan every single thing continued. It led me all around my neighborhood, from one side to the other, but I ended up straying further than I planned when trying to scan one of the glowing green guys. They did try and poison me when I got too close, but I mean, waving around this weird-ass beam of light in their face is probably pretty freaky for them, so I guess they can't be blamed. Never did I end up completing that scan, but I found myself by the creep vine again. Now, I know I'd made a bit of a scene last time I was here, but it seemed like there was nothing really around this time. And on top of that, I'd found this weird tube thing that stuck out of the surface of the water, so I thought that if I got into trouble, I could probably just jump on top of this and be safe. With all of this in mind, I dived down for another try, and it worked. No problem. I was scared enough not to dick around any longer than I needed to this time, and I got out scot-free with a handful of seeds. Fast forward a minute or two, and I'm back aboard the SS Comfy in my new fancy slippers. To be honest, they really weren't the game changer that I thought they would be. I mean, it certainly is a noticeable difference, but ultimately, the real reward was the courage to explore around the creep vine a little more. That, and a knife. And this floaty thing. And I also managed to scan enough debris from the Aurora to learn how to construct something called a sea glide. Now this is the turning point in my aquatic adventure that I thought the slippers would be. The downside is that it requires a constant supply of battery, but this bad boy can just zoom you through the water like nobody's business. I was feeling pretty confident in my ability to now just outrun any threat I might come across, or at least I was until the data entry ruined my dreams. So I decided to make a trek out to one of the other escape pods near me that had been running a distress signal. It was actually a pretty uneventful journey, and I arrived to discover that, of course, nobody from the crash remains. But there is a unique blueprint to be recovered from the crash site, so you already see the gameplay loop at work here as far as the numerous other escape pods out in the world go, which I like. Again, interesting, unique rewards for exploring is always something I'm on board with. So I've got a new oxygen tank blueprint for my troubles, and while I can't actually make it now, I do really dig not drowning, so I'm happy to have it available for when I eventually get the proper supplies. I enjoyed this jaunt enough that shortly after returning home and doing some of the usual scavenging and crafting, I decided why not go check out the other distressed life pod signal I had too. This one was twice as far away, but it's still not that long of an outing with this new sea glider. Thing is about this life pod though, is that it's located in a whole new biome I'd never come across before. Instead of a crowded underwater forest of kelp, out here was a vast expanse of nothing. And the seabed took a sharp dive downward into the depths. I'm not sure if it was actually more intimidating than seeing the creepvine area for the first time, or if it had only felt like it because I was so used to the creepvine by now, whereas this was new and mysterious. But swimming out here was already giving me the chills. I had to push on though, so I told myself that I would just beeline for the life pod, not be distracted by anything else I might find, and get out with the treasure as quickly as I could. I set out. Wait, hold up, what's happening? Oh, turns out the orbiting moon can completely eclipse the sun and cast you into darkness on a moment's notice. That can be a little bit freaky. Right, but yes, I set out. A little nervous. I've seen some new, pretty vicious looking creatures out here already, and I've been hearing some really spooky deep water wails down here. Like wailing, like a cry, not... Anyway. It's all good, the sun is shining. Everything is perfect in this clear blue wonderland. Okay, those are pretty big. They seem to be passive enough though, and that's probably the scariest thing out here. so this is cool. This is nice. That water's pretty deep over there. Okay, but seriously, this moment is the most terrified I've been from a video game in a long time. This maybe 3-minute stretch of coming face to face with an underwater terror, the frantic scramble to safety, goddamn was that nerve-wracking, and then the waiting on top of the vessel, stranded and helpless, too afraid to look under the water to see if the danger had passed. After letting my heart calm down for a couple minutes, I had finally worked up the courage to dive back in. I mean, I didn't really have much choice. I tried to swim up into the life pod, but my path was blocked. I ended up being able to grab the blueprint through the floor though, so it all worked out for me anyway, but I was definitely confused at the time. It only occurs to me now in the future writing this script that it was probably busted open on one side just like the last one was. Speaking of things that only occur to me now, dude, this freaking Kraken was like still lurking around the whole time. I didn't even know. Jesus Christ, this is like a horror movie. Anyway, so I hopped on my Sea Glide and drove back as quickly as I could. My reward for this harrowing experience being, oh yeah, awesome, something to draw out even more sea monsters from hiding. Thanks, Subnautica. At this point, I've started finding enough materials to make walls and structures. You know, house building. I feel like, yeah, I could go for a more relaxing change of pace, so I start scouting around for where to begin construction of my new home. I find another crashed life pod in the process. This one wasn't sending out a distress signal though, so I discovered it entirely by chance. Right beside it was an underwater... Is there even any point to specifying that in this game? Right beside it was an underwater geyser, which piqued my curiosity, but it also seemed, you know, dangerous, so I decided against exploring it for now. I began building my base near here, though. It took me a long time to figure out that these base foundations weren't also supposed to be used as walls, and what I thought were just these little tiny connectors between rooms actually turned out to be pretty much the entirety of a base by itself. In my defense of not figuring this out until Google told me, these things look a lot smaller from the outside. It's not just me, right? They look smaller, right? Well, anyway. So I'm on that classic home building grind, transporting supplies back and forth between my starting pod and my new base, when I get a message. I haven't mentioned it until now, but I've been regularly getting signals from a ship out there in space. A passing vessel actually noticed the crash that happened and have been saying that they'd try and come down and rescue any survivors. I didn't think much of it, just like I didn't think much of the signals that led me to the other life pods, because we all know that you're never going to find anyone else in this game. Which is why I was so surprised and unprepared to hear that this other ship would be landing in 40 minutes. The pickup site was far beyond anywhere I'd ever been at that point. It was even further away than Escape Pod 4, out there in the dark depths. Right away, I started heading that direction just to get a feel for what I'd be dealing with. Well, it wasn't deep, but it wasn't nice enough to just be shallow reefs either. Alright, I guess my plans are changed for the moment. I start rushing around, trying to think of everything I'd need to be prepared to make this journey into the unknown. Since I'd already gathered some stuff to make a base with, I decided to build one as close to the landing point as I could get to safely. It wasn't anything luxurious, but I just wanted to be as prepared as possible when the time came. I stocked up on food, water, medkits, battery for my Sea Glide, and with a little under 2 minutes left, I steeled myself and set out. Since get on your glider and don't look behind you worked so well in returning from Life Pod 4, I figured I'd go for the same strategy here. I start cutting through the thick kelp, but notice a chance to begin veering off to the side a bit towards a region that had no obstructions or places for any monsters to hide. I mean, that's what I thought. So I start heading that way instead. Turns out that some of these monsters were wizards as well. I mean, come on, this is like a cheap jump scare. I expected more from you, Subnautica. Don't get me wrong, it still freaked me the hell out, but I felt so cheated. I mean, not actually at the time. At the time I was just, panicking, crying. Between the hacker sharks and the alligator sharks, and of course the constant fear of what else could be lurking that I didn't even know about yet, I ran back home. Screw it, I'll see if anything happens from there. I hightail it back and shit, I missed it. Yeah, it looks like the ship must have crash landed. All that was left was a big plume of smoke. Man, that's rough. Wait, that might just be a cloud. Yeah, that's okay. Well, guess I'll get back to...
Massive power surge from anomalous contact. Energy discharge detected. Vessel signature lost.
Well, that was pretty dope. I mean, it's awful. It's terrible. Those poor people that were just trying to do the right thing. But also, that was pretty cool. Didn't expect to see something like that. It's also interesting as it seems likely to be the same thing that happened to the player's ship. There's just a laser beam of death that pings you if you get too close to this planet, I guess. I'd love to know what's firing that laser beam, but also there's not a chance in hell you're getting me to swim all the way out there. So, thanks for trying, guys. I appreciate the effort. Back to base building. It goes pretty smoothly. Your options are not nearly as expansive as something like Minecraft. Instead of being able to build out the shape of your structures bit by bit into whatever you want, you're given a series of tubes, basically. Subnautica seems to be a game that is much more focused on you just getting out there and exploring the dark corners of the sea. So base building is quick and efficient instead of detailed and customizable. I've always been more of an explorer, so I don't much mind the style of this kind of game. And also, you seem to unlock more pieces later on, which greatly improve your options. So it's all good and fun for now, though I wish there was some kind of snapping feature for furniture. Once I have a good enough loot chest, I decide to start surveying out to the surrounding areas. I find a section of kelp jungle that, on top of being a lot more canyon-y, doesn't seem to have any alligator sharks at all. Either I was wrong in correlating the alligator sharks to the creekvine, or sometimes these places just don't have any alligator sharks. Which is, pretty cool. I'm into that. I dig being able to explore and relax and not having to be a scared little baby man sometimes. It's a good change of pace, especially when the game gets into these moods where it just decides to jam out. Some of the coolest moments in this whole game were just feeling like you're in a vibrant music video gliding through the environments with the soundtrack blasting in the background, even if the game doesn't always succeed at it. Anyway, I find some cool new flora and fauna in this area, including this little dude that's apparently really good at noticing predators. I wonder how. I get the feeling this could be used to my advantage, so I grab him and start swimming over to the nearest predator. Sorry, little guy. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made for science. Don't worry though, this first test should be pretty easy. See if you can spot the predator.
You didn't care at all, no!
Other news includes this goddamn telepathic, mind-controlling Satan fish that makes you swim into its mouth. Is this not the creepiest thing you've ever seen in your life? Subnautica. Speaking of creepy, did you know that below the friendly, nice, shallow waters you chill in for the start of the game is a vast expanse of, what Subnautica does best, I guess? Really not looking forward to when the next ship comes by and tells me to meet up down there to be rescued or some shit. So after plenty of dilly-dallying around, I scavenged enough technology from crashes to make a new vehicle. The Seamoth. It's pretty cool, but it took me a little while to figure out what the point of it actually was. Aside from looking badass, you can breathe in there, and it gives you another coating of health, I suppose. Mostly just the breathing thing though, as it turns out. With this, you can start diving way down, or just thoroughly explore something without having to constantly swim back up for air. This gave me a chance to really investigate this, by far the largest piece of wreckage I've come across yet. It's in this stretch of ocean covered in these large fields of red grass, home to vicious sand sharks and not much else because, of course. Unlike most other crash sites though, which only have a room or two to explore, this one has you navigating your way through cramped ventilation shafts and corridors over a much larger section of the ship. It's ultimately not that big, but because the path you take through it is so winding, you can actually get lost in here. The camera tends to swivel and twist around in here as you explore, which gives you a much more cinematic feeling of weightlessness, and it also disorients you, which I'm sure is completely intentional, knowing this game. There's also a lot more to find here, naturally. You've got weapon pieces, fragments of the Seamoth to scan if you haven't got your own already, furniture for your home, enough bottled water to make your own ocean once you're done exploring this one, someone's cat jumped on their computer, and if you're really scrubbing the place, you can find a PDA with some information on it. Seems like this is actually a third crashed ship on this planet, so this is either hilariously convenient writing, or there's actually something luring ships to fly down here near the planet so that they can be destroyed by the giant laser. After spending a good long while thoroughly exploring this ship, I'm definitely looking forward to the next wreck like it. Especially since I need to find freaking 20 pieces of this thing to be able to make it. For now though, I'm satisfied with all that I've gained from this one. On my way back, I see one of those giant, slow, floating island looking things. It seems pretty chill, so I decide to go ahead and say hi. I'm sad that I can't scan anything from inside my Seamoth, but it turns out these fellas are actually pretty cool with me, so it wasn't a problem. Apparently you can upgrade the Seamoth in different ways. Maybe scanning is one way that I could find later. Still, having a Seamoth at all is definitely pretty nice. It's given me the confidence to really get out there and explore beyond what I'm comfortable with. Mostly. I'll just check out over here where it's nice and bright. I meant over here where it's nice and bright. Oh wow, hey look at that, it's my base. Wow, small world. Well, since I'm here, I might as well install the next important upgrade I found. This time I've got an addition to my base itself. The scanner room turns your base from feeling like a giant locker into a legitimate hub of operations fit for a master survivalist and explorer. It has a giant holographic map of your surroundings, and this might be the first time you really get a good grasp of where everything is and how they're connected. With this, you can scan for different resources and materials, and they'll be pinged to show up on your map. There's also an upgrade that lets you get this information fed directly into your HUD, which is ridiculously useful, as long as you're lucky enough to be able to scan for what you actually want, anyway. See, there's a list of 10 things that you can choose to scan for at any given time. No scrolling, no anything, it's just these 10 things. This list updates sometimes. I don't know why or when, it just decides to randomly whenever it feels like it, I guess. It's a pretty weird limitation that I have to assume will be changed at some point. The game is still in early access after all. But even with this strange way of working, it's still really nice to be able to pinpoint stuff you might need to find, especially since it seems like certain things don't ever respawn or grow back once you take them. The other cool thing about scanner rooms are their drones. As soon as you build the room, you have access to 2 remote-controlled cameras. These can operate within a set distance of the scanner room to give you a safe method of scouting and exploring. I found it really nice to have for investigating places I hadn't yet been to get a feel for what to expect in person. It can still be pretty creepy swimming around the monster-filled depths with these things, especially when the camera starts losing signal and it's dark and dead silent, but it really takes the edge off when you're at no risk of actually dying yourself. I quickly decided to take one down to the southern sea further than I'd ever been. With a little testing, I figured out that most creatures don't even have an interest in the drones, letting you relax that much more when you're operating them. I got some good looks into the underground mushroom biome with the snakes, and another new one as far down south as I could get. It was around this time that I remembered I had received a life pod signal I'd never actually checked out. This one was from somebody named Second Officer Keen, and it was way out there, which is why I never considered going out there until now, but since I now had the ability to check part of the trail with the recon drones first, I could see that it seemed oddly safe. And yeah, just like with the drone, there wasn't really anything around. With this in mind, I decided to just be adventurous and go for it. I was becoming more and more spooked the further in I went, and when it continued to be silent, I was expecting to maybe even have some kind of scripted event happen, to find out that this was the lair of the Ultra Kraken or something. Especially when my computer system told me, oh yeah, biodiversity around here is unusually low. How strange. Like, I've seen a horror movie or two in my day, Subnautica. I have a feeling I know where this is going. But even so, I'd already gotten this far. I'd already made up my mind to find this life pod. Even if it meant having to ditch my sea moth, and it did because I was now deeper in the ocean than it can handle, which doesn't really make sense if I can just be swimming around here on my own without any problems, but whatever, I'm going for it. So I glide down there, very slowly and very safely, as much as you can be. Seems like there's nothing here. I saw this strange shadow being cast on the ground once I got there, though, and I was convinced that it was some kind of kraken or something waiting underground to snatch me up once I got close. That didn't happen either. So I grabbed my upgrade, grabbed the PDA, and swam back to investigate one other thing I noticed. I found this odd little air vent in the floor of the cave. It's apparently an alien pipe system. My data entry describes this as an access point to a deep alien piping network that extends beyond maximum scannable range. Purpose unknown. How curious. Well, I decided to return to this place to see if I could find out anything else about this alien piping network. And while I certainly found new stuff, I don't know if it was actually related. So, nearby the crashed life pod is a deep crevice, where the land begins to change as you descend. The plants down here look odd. Everything has this kind of veiny look to it. You could describe it as alien, yes, just like these dudes I found hanging out down here. You'd expect them to be somewhat intelligent, but it seemed like they cared as little about my sea moth as the other fish in the sea, which is not what I would expect of a species that's capable of building intricate piping networks, so I'm not sure if these guys are actually responsible. Sadly, I won't be able to know for sure though, because this place is also too deep for my sea moth to handle. So I decide, okay, I need to find some kind of new vehicle or something out there that I can build to tackle lower depths. This is my new quest. If I can't do this, then I'll never get anywhere in life, and I'll never unlock the secrets of this planet. I'll never prove that I have what it takes to escape, to see my wife and children again. I don't care how long it takes. I'll do whatever I have to. For as long as I have to. Let's do this!